Welcome to today's deep dive. We are pulling from a really fascinating stack of urban theory research today.
Yeah, some cutting-edge socioeconomic models and some artificial intelligence civilization mapping as well.
Right. And we have a very specific mission for you today. We want to completely reframe how you look at a major metropolis.
Exactly. It's a total perspective shift.
So to start, I just want you to picture this. You are standing on a train platform in Tokyo.
Okay? Setting the scene.
It is, let's say, a Tuesday morning, right in the absolute middle of rush hour. The digital clock on the platform ticks over, a little announcement chimes, and your train is delayed.
Which happens, everywhere.
Right, but it's not delayed by an hour. It's not even delayed by 20 minutes. It is delayed by exactly 3 minutes.
See, in a vast majority of the world's transit systems, a 3-minute delay wouldn't even register. I mean, you would barely have time to pull your phone out of your pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But according to the observations in our sources today, that tiny 3-minute hiccup creates an immediate, invisible domino effect across the entire metropolis.
It's fascinating to map out.
It really is. Because of that slight delay, the start of a corporate strategy meeting downtown has to shift.
Right.
And because that meeting shifts, a school's first period class a few miles away is delayed because a guest teacher happened to be on that train.
And it just keeps going. A hospital appointment for, like, an MRI gets pushed back.
Yeah, a commercial delivery of fresh seafood to a local restaurant has to be, rescheduled to a completely different loading window.
Even a mundane administrative procedure at a local government office just stalls out for a moment while the queue adjusts to the new timing.
And that cascading chain of adjustments, it isn't simply a traffic management issue, is it?
No, not at all. It reveals something really profound about how we observe cities as functional entities.
Because we usually measure a metropolis by its sheer physical scale, right? We tend to default to those classic metrics.
Yeah, like population size or gross domestic product or, the number of corporate headquarters clustered in the financial district.
How tall is the skyline? How many millions of people live within the city limits? That kind of thing.
Right. But the source material suggests those metrics actually obscure what is genuinely happening.
They hide the real function.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to stop looking at a city as just this massive container of people and start observing it as a civilizational function. That domino effect from the train delay demonstrates that Tokyo is entirely dependent on time synchronization.
Let's unpack this concept of synchronization, because reading through the sources, it completely flips the script.
It really does change everything.
If Tokyo's defining feature isn't just being massive, but rather its ability to keep millions of independent, moving parts on the exact same microschedule,
Yeah.
then we aren't just looking at a city anymore.
Oh, you're looking at a machine.
Right. We are looking at a giant temporal operating system for a society.
I love that phrase. Temporal operating system captures the mechanics perfectly. To understand why a 3-minute train delay matters so much, we have to stop measuring the city by how big it is and start measuring it by how aligned it is.
Okay, I understand the alignment concept on a surface level, but let me just push back on this for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
Doesn't every major global city do this? I mean, a clock ticks the exact same way in London or New York or Paris.
Right, time is time.
Yeah, people have board meetings, kids go to school, traffic patterns emerge. So what makes this temporal OS in Tokyo fundamentally different from the rhythm of, say, Manhattan?
The distinction lies in the sheer density of the synchronization and the near total absence of independent buffers.
Independent buffer.
Yeah. You mentioned London and New York. In those cities, different sectors like education, finance, government, logistics, they operate with a significant degree of temporal looseness between them.
Okay, I see.
Like if a delivery truck in New York is 10 minutes late, the restaurant kitchen just works around it. It's not a disaster.
They just adapt on the fly.
Exactly. But in Tokyo, the infrastructure and the cultural mandates physically demand exact alignment.
Meaning the gears of these different sectors are like meshed together without any lubrication or slack?
They are completely locked together. It is a massive synchronization apparatus. It goes so far beyond just commuter schedules.
We're talking about institutional rhythms here.
Right. Financial closing dates, government fiscal years, corporate approval cycles, school terms, they all lock into a single shared time layer.
So the financial sector's end-of-month closing perfectly aligns with the administrative sector's processing deadlines.
Yes, which perfectly aligns with the logistics sector's highly rigid delivery windows.
Wow. So when the train is 3 minutes late, it's not just that a specific person named John is late for his meeting.
No, it's that the fiscal reporting gear just slightly misaligned with the administrative processing gear.
But how does that physically work? Is there, like, someone centrally dictating this master clock?
It happens through embedded systemic rules. For example, algorithmic trading APIs in Tokyo dictate exact cutoff times for local bank transactions down to the millisecond.
Okay.
And that centralized financial rhythm ripples outward. Regional bank branches in distant towns physically cannot process end-of-day balances until they sync with the closing times of the clearinghouses in Tokyo.
That's incredible. So local municipalities hundreds of miles away have to structure their annual budgets to align with the fiscal rhythm of the central ministries in Tokyo.
Exactly. The city acts as a temporal prime meridian. It dictates the timeline for the rest of the country's institutional behavior.
So the true civilizational function of the city, according to these theoretical models, is to act as a synchronization node.
Yes. It provides the temporal gravity that allows countless independent entities to operate in the exact same time axis.
Okay, so if Tokyo is a giant, meticulous machine for aligning time, what happens when a new variable enters that system that doesn't care about time at all?
Now we're getting into the really disruptive stuff.
Yeah. Right, because looking at the source notes on artificial intelligence, we are introducing a technology whose primary function is to radically accelerate processing speed.
And that introduces an immense structural tension, because the speed of the individual utilizing AI has reached near instantaneous velocity.
Right. I mean, the everyday reality of AI for you, for me, for anyone listening, is that it dramatically accelerates our individual output.
It's almost magic.
Things that used to take days now take seconds. I can ask an AI to draft a 50-page market research document, summarize a stack of dense academic papers, or analyze a year's worth of supply chain metrics.
And it's sitting in your inbox before you even finish your coffee.
Exactly. The individual creates the output instantly. But the problem is society does not run purely on individual speed.
No, it really doesn't.
It's like upgrading the processor on a 15-year-old laptop without upgrading the motherboard.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
The new processor can do the math in a nanosecond, but it still has to push that massive amount of data through old copper wires and outdated architecture.
And the whole computer just overheats and shuts down.
Right. I can generate a brilliant, comprehensive strategic plan in 3 seconds, but then it still takes 3 weeks to actually implement it.
Let's trace that overheating motherboard analogy through your AI-generated strategic plan. So the AI wrote it in 3 seconds, but the department head now has to confirm the data isn't hallucinated.
Because AI does that.
Right, and someone has to take liability if the plan fails. The new plan has to be checked against existing vendor contracts, which were signed 6 months ago.
And it has to fit into the administrative procedures set for the current fiscal quarter.
Exactly. So the bottleneck isn't generating the work anymore.
The bottleneck is the liability and the budget cycles.
Yes. If AI makes computing essentially free and instant, what becomes the scarce resource?
See, I would normally think it's human creativity or maybe the physical energy to run the servers.
But the sources point to a fascinating inversion here. We used to think cognitive speed was the scarce resource. We built our entire working world around maximizing human output.
Right. Efficiency, productivity.
But as computing power becomes abundant, the new scarce resource in civilization changes. It becomes synchronization.
The slow, careful alignment of responsibility.
Exactly. Society increasingly depends on the meticulous integration of legal contracts, institutional rhythms, and operational procedures.
You can generate a million brilliant ideas a minute, but if they aren't synchronized into the shared time layer of the society, they don't actually exist in the real world.
They are just theoretical text on a screen. The actual implementation is the bottleneck.
I want to make sure we look at this impartially, though. Because this massive, dense synchronization, this temporal OS, it's not some frictionless utopia.
Far from it.
Our sources introduce this concept of sync pressure, and reading through the notes, you can genuinely feel the weight of it.
The pressure is an unavoidable physical reality of the system.
If a society demands that millions of people and institutions operate on the exact same time axis, the load on the people living inside that system is immense.
The researchers call it a heavy pressure on the living membrane of the city.
Maintaining that perfect alignment requires people to endure notoriously long commutes packed into crowded trains, just so everyone is at their desks at the exact same minute.
It also manifests in the corporate architecture. Look at the traditional ring-e-show approval system mentioned in the case studies.
Oh, the stamp system.
Right. Buying a simple piece of new software might require a physical or digital document to be stamped by a dozen different managers in a highly specific sequential order.
Which to an outsider just looks like endless, redundant bureaucracy.
But it serves a purpose. Responsibilities get intentionally blurred because no single person wants to be the one who steps out of rhythm and makes an independent, unsynchronized decision.
Now, we aren't observing the synchronization pressure to praise its efficiency or to criticize its bureaucracy.
No, it's just an observation.
We are simply mapping the incredibly heavy load required to keep a complex society perfectly aligned.
Right. When the structural cost of stepping out of sync is high, the living membrane will endure immense pressure to stay in rhythm.
This concept of the synchronization bottleneck really snapped into focus for me when the sources zoomed out to the global perspective.
Oh, the mapping section is brilliant.
It is. If you are listening to this and wondering why your own company struggles to integrate AI, zooming out to this global map explains everything.
We often treat global technological shifts like local IT issues, but they aren't. Let's walk through the COA, the City Observation Architecture.
Right, the COA framework fundamentally changes how you view global geography. In the AI era, cities are not homogenizing into generic megacities that all do the same thing.
They are specializing into distinct functional nodes, operating like different organs in a single civilizational body.
It's basically a global organizational chart for the AI age. The architecture identifies 4 primary nodes. First, we have the direction node, which the map assigns to San Francisco.
Because the civilizational function of San Francisco isn't necessarily to build the physical infrastructure. It is where the entrepreneurs, the researchers, and the venture capitalists gather to build the narrative.
They point the compass.
Exactly. They decide what problems AI should solve and what the theoretical future should look like.
Okay, so if San Francisco is the brain pointing the compass and setting the intention, someone has to actually run those massive models. Where is the physical muscle?
The computation node is located in Northern Virginia.
See, that feels pretty counterintuitive at first glance, doesn't it? You would assume Silicon Valley handles the computation too.
Most people do. But computation is intensely physical. We use abstract terms like the cloud, but the cloud is made of concrete, steel, massive amounts of water for cooling, and staggering electrical consumption.
Northern Virginia holds the physical muscle of the AI civilization.
Right. Because of its historical proximity to the original internet backbone, cheap power, and dense fiber optic arteries late in the 90s, it houses the densest concentration of data centers on Earth.
So it actually calculates the future that San Francisco pointed toward.
Precisely.
Okay, so we have the brain's intention in San Francisco and the physical muscle firing in Northern Virginia. The third organ on this map is the circulation node, which is Singapore.
And Singapore's function is to connect the flow of the civilization. It operates at the intersection of deep-water physical ports and massive undersea data cables.
Merging the physical and the digital.
Right. It merges global logistics and cargo shipping with high-level finance, insurance, and neutral information networks.
Its role is to ensure that capital, physical goods, and data are constantly flowing through the arteries of the global system without clotting.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Let me just synthesize this because it is such a brilliant way to map the world. San Francisco can invent a completely new AI paradigm.
Yep.
Northern Virginia has the raw computing muscle to calculate and train that paradigm. Singapore can provide the financial capital and logistical shipping to distribute the hardware globally. But until that new technology is meticulously synchronized into human contracts, local labor laws, daily transit routines, school curriculums, and hospital budgets, it isn't real.
It is just a theoretical capability floating in a data center.
Right. Without a mechanism for implementation, the technology remains completely detached from the timeline of human society.
And that is exactly why Tokyo is mapped as the fourth node, the synchronization node.
It takes all that velocity, all that computing power, and acts as the vital connection point that implements it into the present tense.
It provides the necessary friction. San Francisco says, let's automate administrative workflows. Northern Virginia provides the servers to run the models.
But Tokyo is where society has to figure out how do we automate the tax office without breaking the pension system API?
Right. Or who legally signs the vendor agreement, and how does this affect the 8.0 a.m. commuter flow?
This brings us to a really fascinating paradox, and it is the central question we have to answer for you today. Based on all of this, is Tokyo a fast city or a slow city?
From a local perspective, sitting in an office trying to get an AI software project approved, it can look agonizingly slow.
I mean, you are dealing with those endless meetings, careful approvals, and a deeply cautious institutional mindset.
You are the person with the new processor overheating the old motherboard. It feels incredibly inefficient to the individual.
But if we look at it through the lens of civilizational function,
Then Tokyo is neither simply fast nor slow. Its function is not about velocity. Its function is to be the buffer.
it is a city designed to keep completely different speeds aligned without allowing society to break apart, like a shock absorber.
Exactly. It absorbs the massive impact of new technology without letting the old structural foundations shatter.
Because if you force a complex human society to adapt to the speed of a data center overnight, the society fractures.
Institutions fail. Trust in public administration collapses.
The synchronization node absorbs the high-speed input from the computation and direction nodes and gears it down to a speed that the legal, financial, and daily life structures can actually digest.
Now think about your own life, your own work. We all exist in this exact tension right now.
You probably have tools at your fingertips that let you work at lightning-speed AI assistance, instant global communication, massive data access.
Your own output can be incredibly fast.
But where does your fast AI-enabled output slam into the slow, necessary synchronization required by everyone else around you?
Because you do not operate in a vacuum. You operate inside an organization, a community, or a family structure.
So the delay you feel when trying to launch a new project isn't necessarily a flaw in your company's management. It might just be the cost of keeping the social fabric of your workplace from tearing apart.
Your boss, your legal department, your HR team, they're playing the role of the synchronization node in your life.
It is a necessary load-bearing function.
Things break without it. But observing this leads to one final, deeply provocative concept hidden in the deeper phase mechanics of our sources.
Okay, let's get into that.
We have observed how vital synchronization is for societal stability. However, the models dealing with phase fluidity warn of a severe danger in becoming too good at it.
Hold on, let me stop you there. Phase mechanics and phase fluidity. And the notes also mention chronic depolarization.
I know, it sounds intense.
Those sound like advanced physics or maybe a medical heart condition. Break that jargon down for me.
Let's use a physical material analogy. Think about a highly engineered piece of metal. If you remove all the flexibility, all the microscopic give, it becomes incredibly hard.
Right, it's perfectly efficient.
But it also becomes brittle. When a sudden, unpredictable shock hits it, it doesn't bend, it shatters.
Oh, wow.
The sources refer to a perfectly synchronized society as suffering from chronic depolarization, meaning the system has lost its ability to hold contrasting charges or speeds. It has become entirely rigid.
Perfect efficiency equals brittleness. So if every single entity in a society is locked onto the exact same timeline, with zero buffer, zero slack, and zero tolerance for delay, what happens when a totally unpredictable shock occurs?
The system has no capacity to absorb the hit. If you have a society optimized to the exact millisecond, a sudden technological paradigm shift, a massive natural disaster, or a global supply chain failure doesn't just cause a localized delay.
The 3-minute train delay becomes a 3-month systemic collapse.
Right, because there is no slack left in the motherboard to reroute the power. The system has lost its ability to dynamically adapt.
So the researchers argue that a system's true stability, its phase fluidity, is not measured by its lack of friction, but by its capacity to recover from shocks.
And recovery requires unused resources. It requires what the theoretical models call fluctuations.
By fluctuations, you mean the noise, the inefficiencies.
Yes, people taking too long in the meeting, software systems that don't perfectly talk to each other.
The unstructured conversations, the departments that are slightly out of sync with the main corporate rhythm.
Exactly. The local communities that operate on a totally different, slower cadence than the centralized financial clearinghouses.
In a world obsessed with AI acceleration, these look like bugs that need to be optimized out of existence.
But from the perspective of civilizational survival, those fluctuations are the secret to resilience.
That completely flips the script on how we view productivity. We spend our whole lives trying to eliminate noise and inefficiency. We use AI to trim the fat from every single process.
But the models are telling us that the fat is actually the shock absorber. It provides the necessary liquid stability for a civilization.
Because if you freeze a society into a solid, perfectly synchronized block, it might run incredibly fast for a short period of time, but it cannot adapt to a changing environment.
Exactly. So as we integrate artificial intelligence into our lives, our companies, and our cities, the goal shouldn't be to build a perfectly rigid, frictionless machine.
Because perfect synchronization might just be another word for stagnation.
The friction is a feature of a surviving system, not a flaw.
That is a staggering thought to leave on. The next time you are frustrated by a slow approval process, an inefficient meeting, or even a delayed train, consider that you might not be looking at a failure of the system.
You might be looking at the very friction that keeps the whole machine from flying apart.
So ask yourself, in your pursuit of perfect AI-driven efficiency, what vital, messy fluctuations are you accidentally optimizing out of your own life?